had psychological problems and other things as well. I suggested to her that she should improve her diet and take lots of vitamins, and she thought that was a good idea, and to some extent did it. She still maintained drinking off and on. I'm sorry to say, there's not a sure cure for everything, is there? She still had trouble in her life, but by golly, she took a lot of vitamins, and she took a lot of vitamin C. In the last few years, she has been retested, and they cannot find HIV in her body. And you know what they're saying now? She never had it. Oh, yes, she did. She went to so many doctors and had so many treatments and so much confirmation, there is no question she had HIV. And you know, she still might. I'm not discounting the seriousness in the matter. All I'm saying is something good is happening when they can't find it. So when we talk viruses, think about it. How far can we go with this? How far can we go with it? Little baby. This last year, I became a grandfather for the first time. Oh, man, is that fun. Baby gets vitamin C a lot. My children were raised on vitamin C and vegetable juicing and a mostly, but not quite, plant-based diet. I used to take them along with me to lectures. It's always a lot of fun. Take your kids when you do a lecture. And afterwards, people come up and they go right to the children. Do you really take all that vitamin C? Do you really drink carrot juice? And they say, yes. You really never got vaccinations? And that was true too. So when we talk activists, we're also talking avant-garde. There are many things to know about this, but one thing we do know, whether you get children immunized or not, it turns out if you give them vitamins, they have fewer side effects from the immunization. And if you give them vitamins, the shots actually provide better protection. It's a win-win. You can't go wrong with nutrition. Good nutrition never hurt anyone. But good nutrition is appropriate, and that means higher doses than you ever imagined. How high? Imagine a 21-pound baby, approximately 11 months old, maybe a year. A friend of mine who was a health professional himself came to see me and said the baby has been sick for a week. Nobody's getting any sleep. Runny nose, coughing, high fever, fretful, flushed skin, all kinds of problems. The child had been sick really most of its first year of life. It had been on 11 courses of antibiotics in 11 months. Now, common sense tells us that's not a good idea, and any doctor or nurse will confirm that. 11 courses of antibiotics into a child not even a year old, and of course the child was still sick. There's an old saying, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. The use of antibiotics is getting to the point now where it's actually causing diseases. In prisons, again, where I can tell you with some confidence, disease-resistant strains of bacteria are a serious matter. Tuberculosis, for instance. Now, unless you shoot them all, sooner or later, these prisoners are going to come back to your community. So it's in our interest, to everyone's interest, to make sure we solve what's really wrong. And double bumping them and putting 90 into a cabin designed for 45 is not going to exactly slow down the spread of TB either. Even the state of New York, if you ask them, will admit that 20% of their inmates are positive for TB. And the captain of the guards at the women's prison I worked at said 50% of the women there were HIV positive. It's more like a hospital than a jail. Cancer. What could be more frightening than that? This statistic, that's what. A peer-reviewed scientific study showed that the actual benefit from chemotherapy in the United States of America to the 5-year survival of a cancer patient is only 2.1%. Chemotherapy is 97.9% ineffective. I know a few oncologists. No wonder they're depressed. I did graduate work at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, inner city Boston. It's right next to Harvard Medical School. I was there because I was an observer and a counseling trainee. And I used to see some pretty sick people, and this one young woman was particularly memorable. She was dying of leukemia. The hospital fed her literally canned soup, white bread, and Jell-O. That's not enough. That's not good nutrition. She died. I remember seeing her husband. He was in his early 30s. He was just sitting in the hallway with his head in his hands and a medical book open in front of him, trying to figure out what happened. Here's good news. The National Institutes of Health has actually funded studies that have shown that high-dose vitamin C given intravenously is selectively toxic to cancer cells. That means vitamin C in really high doses given intravenously kills cancer cells without hurting normal cells. Now, this is really, really important. And the amount of vitamin C used is between 35 and 100,000 milligrams of vitamin C given intravenously, usually every second or third day, for a week or two, followed by oral doses, high oral doses for a long time afterwards. How well does it work? A woman called me up from New England. Her mother was dying of pancreatic and colon cancer. That's a rotten combination. The mother didn't want to eat. She had no energy. She was depressed. You can certainly understand that. The mother had given up, but the daughter didn't. The daughter said, "What about an IV of vitamin C?" I said, "Well, I don't know. You're going to have to look pretty hard." And she found a doctor. She had to go to another state. She found a doctor that would give intravenous vitamin C. She drove over an hour with a mother that didn't want to drive for 10 minutes. Went there, had the intravenous vitamin C, and on the way home, the woman felt so much better, she said, "Let's stop and have something to eat." Her attitude had changed, her energy level came up, and her appetite came back. I worked with a man once who had lung cancer. This is probably just as well before lunch than after, but he had severe lung cancer, and he was coughing up blood. It was a horrible thing. He was in terrible pain. He could not lie down. He had to sleep sitting up in his recliner. He couldn't walk. He couldn't lie down. He had no appetite, and he was coughing up blood. The family wondered if anything could be done. Now, what do you answer in a case like that? The answer is, as Mark Twain said, "When in doubt, tell the truth. It'll gratify some and astonish the rest." So I said, I really don't know what you can expect at this point, but one thing that might give you better quality